Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me as always is Amusum.
Hello.
Patreon.com/E1M1, the ones are numbers. That's where you can go support us financially if you are able to do so. The $5 a month tier gets everything, all the behind the scenes, early access to stuff like We Rogue Like It and Critical Misses, our kind of movie and music and eventually probably comics show. You know, all of our media we've missed. And if you can't support us financially, totally understand. Times are especially tight. If you can just share this show and go rate it 5 stars wherever you can rate it, that helps out a ton. Patreon.com/E1M1. Musum, what have you been playing this past month?
Not a whole lot, but
Okay.
I did manage to finally beat Mass Effect 3.
Oh, nice.
I feel like I have a lot of things to say about Mass Effect 3. Let's see if I'll remember them all. But the first half of the game has me convinced that this is in fact the best Mass Effect.
Right.
2 was great, but 3 excels in every way. Like, it has so many quality of life things and so many cool environmental things. The progression of the condition of the Citadel throughout the game, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah.
It has a lot of environmental storytelling that, some of that was present in 2, but not to the extreme as in 3. But it also feels like a game that the writing staff all had different ideas of what this game was about, which
right.
I could see that happening in a game about decisions that can branch kind of wildly in some cases. But when you compare the Shepard having the dream and chasing the little boy and how
right.
disconnected that feels from the rest of the feeling of the game.
Right. I forgot about that stuff.
Yeah. It's, you just have one of those dreams in every act, in one of the 3 acts, right? And then of course I guess I won't spoil the ending.
Yeah, I guess there's probably a whole bunch of people playing it for the first time now that I think about it.
Yeah. But all of Act 1 is you just feel these insurmountable odds, but you're making victories and you're making headway, and all the Krogan stuff is a lot of fun. And then, they just gut punch you after you get off of Tuchanka, which I won't spoil that either, but and that was during the gut punch is one of my issues with the game, and that they introduced this villain named I think his name's Kai Lang, and he's this ninja assassin guy, and everything he does is outside of the game mechanics, and
right,
everything he does is in a cutscene. So you are constantly bested by a character in combat in cutscenes, which it's always very frustrating to me. I always feel like a video game really succeeds when they continue communicating to you through the mechanics of the game, right?
Right.
And I think they were just so desperate to have someone that you really wanted to kill in the game, and also someone to kind of thwart Shepard in that way. So that was I really just didn't care for his storyline at all. But I will say that when you finally get to beat him, it is very gratifying.
Right.
But it doesn't maybe feel as earned by the game as it should have been. But the really is the story, in a way, they really had some cojones doing what they did with that story in the end.
Right.
They took a huge they had I obviously they didn't understand how unpopular of choices they've made were, but during that process they had to have known how much a lot of those story beats and failures in terms of your ability to save, whether you save how do I put this, in terms of the negative things that happen in the storyline in the game,
right, sort of as a consequence of your choices.
Yeah. It absolutely was going to be decisive.
Right.
Decisive, not decisive. Divisive.
Right.
But it's a really fantastic game. When you hit the Citadel DLC feels like a freaking fever dream compared to the rest, because like
Right.
you're probably doing it at a point where like maybe half of the galaxy has been murdered.
Right. Things are pretty dire.
And then it's, guess what? The Normandy has to dock for some repairs, and you're going to go into this ridiculous like level story that is just so much fun to play, but it's so stupid and ridiculous. Like who the villain is in that story is one of the stupidest like things they could have done, but it produces so many fun moments, and they have so many good character moments like in the combat for that and running through it. Like it's so much fun, and it reads like a freaking buddy cop movie in a lot of ways. Like like a buddy cop movie, like Lethal Weapon 2, like is it reads like you're walking along, maybe not Lethal Weapon 2, but like, you know, you're walking along and, oh, here's this character that hasn't been in your party the whole game, or this character, and
oh, look who's here.
Like they have a bit where you're like attacked, like you accidentally destroy a certain restaurant, and like all of the characters through all the DLC are just giving you crap for it the whole time. Like it's so good. It is so wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you go to the party, the party's a lot of fun, too. But it's this time around, I think I enjoyed the level more than the party.
Sure.
And then after I finished the party, I'm like, well, there's nothing left to do but be utterly depressed by the rest of the game. So then I didn't play it for like a week or so.
Right.
Like, it's just going to be the sad stuff, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for it. But then I played through it, and it was fine, but I was also kind of looking at the endings through the lens of like this possible Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, whatever the next one is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I always, I won't go over what the endings are, but you know, there's the blue, the green, and the red ending. We'll just call them that. And the green ending, everyone is green glowy afterwards.
Okay.
And the green ending is the one I hope they go with, and I hope they just don't make them glowy green like they do.
Right.
Because the other two endings seem fairly miserable to me. But it also means like you have more potential crew that could still be alive with the green ending.
Okay.
There's like, even if they do it, you know, 500 or 600 years later, like, okay, sure, Rex is probably old, so he might be gone. But if you made a certain set of choices in that game, he has a kid possibly named Morden out there. Like,
right. Yeah, there's at least like, you could have some of the old crew, some of the new crew kind of hanging out together.
Yeah. And I'd like to, I like the idea of like an 800-old like Liara who's literally seen it all. You know?
Yeah, that'd be really good.
It's and like I feel like Grunt. I need to go back and read the codex. I've never really been clear on how long Krogans lived. I thought it was 500 years, but then I feel like in 3 somewhere they mentioned that they lived to be 800 or 1,000, which to me means Grunt could still be alive, assuming he didn't die in 2 or 3 for you.
Right. Right.
But also as writers and developers, if they like they have to just decide on a set of decisions and then base the game off that, right? Like they can't possibly attempt to import.
Yeah, I feel like with how I use the word divisive, and I think that's exactly the right word, how divisive the ending of 3 was, I feel like they have to pick one canonical ending. You know, like they did between Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. You know, there were 2 endings to MGS1, so like there had to pick one at some point. But I feel like it would be like the worst choice and the biggest setup for failure if they're like, all right, here, let's import your Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 Legendary Edition save into Mass Effect 5. No big deal. Let's get all your stuff. I feel like that would just
Yeah.
they'd be shooting themselves in the foot again.
Like if they want to do like the Life is Strange thing and ask like one or two big questions that they'll just
100%.
maybe color the background, like sure.
Right.
Was
Like-
Liara the love interest or was it someone else? Like check
Right.
that box and then load the game, you know?
Right. What happened to the universe? Like, here's 3 or 4 choices. Like,
Yeah.
but it should only. I think it should only color some like background information. A lot of like the first couple choices you make in Mass Effect 1, where it's like, what's your background? What's your origin story? Where were you born? Like, that doesn't have a huge impact throughout all 3 games, but it kind of colors your backstory. It'd be nice if they do that.
Speaking of the backstory, I'm just going to backtrack for a minute. So this time around in Mass Effect 1, I tried to pick backstory stuff I hadn't chosen before. So I chose that I came from a Marine family, or military family. Sorry, I don't know that he was specifically Marine.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what the other one was. I think I chose the renegade-based one. But if you chose the military one, your mom's still alive. Like,
Oh, whoa.
Like, I got a phone call from my mom in 3. Like, that's super
crazy.
weird.
I had no idea. Wow.
Like, you know, in 3, everyone's constantly worried about their family, wherever they are, in terms of surviving whatever Reaper attacks are going on.
Mhm.
And, like, Shepard is too. It's,
Your mom calls up, hey, sweetie. It's just like, what?
yeah. It's, honestly, I thought it was really a cool touch. It's,
Yeah.
I must have just constantly chosen the same backgrounds before, because I feel like all the background stuff I got in these playthroughs were fairly different, and like all 3 games have different like little accents on that.
Interesting.
I really appreciated.
Wow, that's cool.
But anyway, I'm probably gonna shelve this for a while and eventually go back and play. Like, I guess the legendary. So they do the trophies weird in this, and I assume they do the achievements the same too, where you have a set of trophies for Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and then you have a set of trophy for Legendary Edition. So
yeah, they're like umbrella achievements where it's like, get 500 assault rifle kills across all 3 games.
Yeah, and I don't know that any of them are that hardcore, but one of them is beat all 3 games on Insanity. So my thinking is,
wow, okay,
I'm gonna do like and I keep hedging. I'm like, so this time I did like a male Shepard, and I romanced Liara in the first game and the third game, and I romanced Jack in the second game, and then Liara again in the Shadow Broker DLC.
Okay.
So this next time through, either I'm going to be female Shepard and romance Garrus, or I'm going to be male Shepard and romance Tally, because I keep.
Okay.
I just think of. I know Tally is a fan favorite in terms of the romance stuff, but she's just like a little sister to me, and I have a really hard time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's. I want that, but also I'm wary of it. But those are kind of where my brain's at on it.
Right.
And it was. I'll tell you, in Mass Effect 3, Kaiden was not as he's still a fairly boring character.
Yeah.
He is not as boring as he was in 1. Like, he gets some entertaining lines, and James like really enjoys bringing up that he has L2 biotics, which is like a trigger for him.
Oh, right. So he's like ribbing him a little bit.
Yeah, but like it's very like unappreciated.
I feel like BioWare got some really clear feedback after the first one with Caden. We're just like, this dude sucks. Like, this dude is super annoying. Like, that's why I never bring him along in any of my games. I always bring Ashley, who's like a super space racist. So she's like no better. She has an okay like trajectory through the games. She's obviously not in your party at all in 3. But
yeah, she can join your party. Well, not in my party, but if I had chosen her, she would be a team member in 3.
Oh, really? Why am I thinking of... Maybe it's how I played the DLC in 2, where she's like, hey, Shepard, how's it going? Hey, nice to meet you. Okay, see ya, I got other stuff to do. It's like, okay.
Yeah, so two's the one where they don't join you. Like, you just briefly run into them during the first collector's attack because you save whichever one is alive.
Okay, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of then.
And then in 3, like, you can make a set of choices where they... Like, if you make the wrong set of choices, instead of joining the Normandy crew, they will go join Hackett.
Okay.
So that is a possibility.
Okay.
And I think she's a decent character by the time she gets to 3. It was just...
Yeah.
With the current political climate and going through 1 and hearing her do the space racist stuff, and then also the thought occurring of, have I ever actually allowed Caden to live?
Right.
Which, another funny thing that happens in the Citadel DLC is at one point, like, all the characters are guilt tripping you in that they want to go with you in the party.
Right.
And, like, Caden was like, I never get picked. And I'm like,
sorry,
I bet
buddy.
they freaking counted it.
Right.
I bet they knew.
Yeah. That's great.
But anyway, I still think those are, like, it is definitely a flawed series. Like,
Yeah.
it is not perfect by any means, but I still think it is, like, one of the funnest game trilogies out there. And I think it was amazing that they chose an ending that would completely destroy their ability to do sequels to it, but
Right.
they made such a cool world, like,
Yeah.
which in a way makes that decision even ballsier. But, like, you could have literally just made 20 games with Shepard preparing to fight the Reapers and doing, here's Mass Effect 10. You're going to be on the Citadel solving crimes the whole time.
Yeah.
Like,
Sign me up. All right.
yeah. Like, I'd be happy the whole time. So,
well, it's funny because EA just put out, I think it was probably their quarterly financials, and they said that, like, hey, we're super blown away by the support and the sales numbers of Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I was like, where have you been for like 10 years? Like, as soon as like the PS4 and the Xbox One came out, everyone's like, yeah, just bring it forward to the next generation. Come on, just keep putting it out every generation. We're happy. So it's one of those things where it's like, of course I'm glad it sold super well, but like, of course it did, guys. Like, people love these games.
yeah. I own a bunch of video game shirts. I own a bunch of band shirts. I have more people talk to me about my Mass Effect hoodie than any other clothing item I have ever owned in my life.
Yep.
Man. Anyway, those games are great.
Yep.
That first game's hard to go back to now. I think a new player going to it is going to have an especially hard time. But
it's very slow. It's very clunky. Like, I still like the first one for all the world building they're doing, especially in the Citadel, where you spend so much time in there, like, exploring and proving yourself to the council and stuff. But like, if you're expecting like the footage you've seen of Mass Effect 2, where it's like, all right, here we go, pew 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 pew, like, that's not. That's not most of Mass Effect 1.
I mean, even Mass Effect 2 plays like a little bit slower than I think most people remember it.
Yeah. And
I love that game. But it's the amount of time Mass Effect 3 saves you with quality of life things. Like, in 2, after every like story mission, every crew member has something new to say.
Right.
Typically. In Mass Effect 2, they have a limit, and it's not like a whole lot. Like, each character is like 4 or 5 things, and once they run out, then they're just going to say it. So you'll go up to them not knowing whether they have something new. You'll click on them, and then it'll go into the talking interface, and you won't have any new options, and you'll click goodbye. Whereas Mass Effect 3, you only get the talking interface if they have something new to say. And if they don't have something new to say, they just say something off the cuff. And if they're only going to tell you something that you don't get a choice in, they're just going to tell you it without going to the talking interface, which is, I don't know, it's awesome. And it's the other thing that Mass Effect 3 does that's freaking beyond this world amazing is, just your characters will interact with each other, where they didn't really into. Like, if you were in a mission and shooting at things, then maybe they might talk. Maybe
like a one-liner to another one.
Do what?
Like a one-liner to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Mass Effect 3, you look on your map and you're like, why is Garrus and Caden in the freaking lounge, and then you go in there and they're just chilling, having their own conversation.
Yeah, we're just hanging out.
And that's like one of probably a dozen of those things,
Right.
And granted, maybe they couldn't do that until they had the, until they'd gotten to 3, just in terms of, we have not earned this with our characters yet. I don't know. But,
right.
Anywho, obviously I love that game. You guys, if you've been listening for years, you know that and are sick of me talking.
Go play the Legendary Edition or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So I also played 2 other games, both on my phone, that I'll briefly talk about. I kind of stopped playing them both a week ago, so this may be the last time. I don't know.
Okay.
First one is Bill Sifford messaged me in Discord and was like, hey, let's go play Marvel Strike Force. And then he played it a day, and then I didn't realize he had stopped until a week later.
Right.
But we kind of just made an alliance, and it was just us 2 in it, and I played a little bit, and they've really streamlined a lot of things about that game. Like,
oh, nice.
Previously, like, one of the methods they would introduce new characters is in a mode called Blitz. And Blitz is, you basically have like 8 tiers of difficulty, and the more battles you win, then the more likely you are to go to the next tier, and you have to use all the members of your party, and generally, like, if you want to get top 100, then you're going to have to get like 50 million points or something. Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Or no, I'm sorry, 50,000 points. It's still a ludicrous number.
Right.
Like, for instance, on these blitzes I did this go around, I got maybe 12,000, I think, at the highest.
Okay.
But they made it so that whereas Blitz was I'm going to be on my phone all day long for the entire week, now you can do all your blitzes in about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They just added a simulator battle thing, so you just scroll through your team, hit the battle, wait a few seconds, go to the next one.
Right. Especially for the lower level ones where it's like, I know I'm going to clear this like dozen of battles. I don't need to see this fight.
Yeah. And I honestly, like, there's so much, in these phone game service games, like there's always so many things you have to do to get everything, right?
Yeah.
And like one of the daily options on this was you had to do 2 real-time battles against other real players, and I didn't do those at all because I knew it was like, that's probably like 20 minutes. Like, we'll have to sit around and draft our teams, which is like a back and forth thing, and I'm sure by now they've streamlined it a little bit, but I can't imagine that they could have streamlined it that much.
Well, and since you've been out of the game for so long, the chances of you getting just stomped by another team after doing this whole setup seems like it'd probably be pretty high.
Yeah. Like, I used to be a decently high-level player,
right?
A year or 2 ago when I played, and now it's like I don't have any of the meta teams.
Yeah, exactly.
I did fairly decent for what I had, and like, that's still a really fun game. But like, at the end of the day, I'm tired of being on my phone. Like, if I'm being honest,
right.
So I kind of hung it up, and then this will also go hand in hand with Epic 7, which Epic 7 was trying real hard to keep me. Like, it was like, guess what? We're going to introduce Strays, the new character you can only get through Mystic Summons. And we're going to give you a couple hundred Mystic Summons. And I drew him. And like,
nice.
There were a couple other rare characters that I drew, who I don't remember their names offhand. But like, it kept giving me really good characters. And it's like, it kept hanging me on a little bit longer. But once I installed Strike Force, I played it a little bit less, and once I stopped playing Strike Force, I was like, I think I'm done with this for now. I don't know that I need to go back. Like, the story's at a point where like I have to put in quite a bit of effort to figure out whatever team I'm going to go into there in, and I really don't. I like getting characters in these games and leveling them up, but I don't like the equipment grind, which is what it's all about.
I keep firing that up maybe every couple of weeks. I'll be like, oh yeah, Epic 7. Like, I'm kind of laying here in bed and kind of winding down for the day. Maybe I'll check that out. And just like the amount of work I need to do to get to like the next story point or kind of do the next set of events, or like there's always an event running for some banner, and it's like, all right, hop in here. Here's a storyline that's enjoyable, and then here's 3 different currencies. And I'm just like, I gotta go. I can't. I don't want to. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I get real tired of the currency stuff in this. I wish we could just have normal experience bars, and like, I guess Epic 7 tried to like adjust some of it. So like the last like whatever seasonal story event thing they did, the currency you owned, instead of buying stuff from a store, they basically just had a puzzle with a finite amount of pieces, and you would just buy pieces of the puzzle, and it would give you one of the prizes randomly. So
interesting.
And you would get, like, I think I completed, I think on 2 of the puzzles, I got all the rare prizes and didn't complete the puzzles, like.
Oh, okay.
But it still was an annoying grind. But they also added and I think they always had some form of this, but they made it to where if you had characters equipped with certain artifacts, you would have a percentage increase in the amount of the currency you were grinding for.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't know. Like, I didn't have most of the artifacts I needed, so I don't know how actually effective of it is, but it seemed related also to, like, the artifacts levels, so you would have needed the resources to level them up if you hadn't.
Right. It's for the people who've played every day for the last couple of years, and probably not for guys like us.
Oh, right. There's one more thing I wanted to mention about Marvel Strike Force, because I experienced the ISO 8 system they introduced.
Oh, okay.
The ISO 8 system is like, so a lot of the meta in Marvel Strike Force when I played back in the day was largely driven by team abilities, right? Like you would have the Black Order who would give Thanos the Infinity Gauntlet, and you'd have all these buffs and whatnot.
Yeah, and they all like synergize together.
Yeah, like and so they went real hard on team synergies like that, and I'm pretty sure they still do. But ISO 8 lets you create synergy between characters who don't have teams, basically.
Oh, okay. So like unrelated characters.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I wound up just using it on related characters as I was going. Like, it's kind of just another avenue of equipment leveling up is what it winds up being. But you have like 5 classes you can choose from for each character. You can okay, so there are 5 levels of ISO 8, right? Like, and I'm going to get some of this wrong. So if someone in the audience is a Marvel Strike Force player, I apologize. I'm going to screw part of it up. But you have like basically 5 levels of ISO 8, and each level gives you the ability to spend this other currency that for some reason I had like several 100,000 of.
Oh, wow.
To buy a level in one of the classes.
Okay.
So, like, in the levels in the classes were maybe like 5,000, 10,000, or 15,000 points. And I assume that accelerated as you went up. But so, like, if you chose tank for someone, or it's not called tank, if you chose fortifier, which lets a character start out with a barrier that I think is like based off of a percentage of their health. And then you decided, like, okay, let's say I put barrier on Invisible Woman. And then it's like, well, she already kind of had stuff like that. Maybe that was a waste. Maybe I should change to healer, who heals someone every turn. So, like, I wouldn't have to go and grind the equipment again. I would just have to have enough of that currency to buy the levels.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I could only level up to whatever rank that ISO 8 equipment had gotten me to. So it's a little confusing, but it was nowhere near as like management time intensive as I had worried.
Right.
But it gives characters that are unrelated and related new synergies, and it seemed cool.
Yeah, that does sound neat.
But it's, again, I'm tired of playing games on my phone. I got too much to do. So, Right. But so that is all I've been playing.
Okay. Let's start off here with the brand new game that came out 2 weeks ago, I think. The Ascent. This is on PC and the Xbox platforms. It's on Game Pass. It is a twin stick shooter action RPG with probably one of the best looking games I've played in a really long time. Not only graphically but stylistically, it's one of those few games that really captures what Cyberpunk is supposed to look like. Like, very much the kind of haves and have-nots of Cyberpunk, and like you're in this kind of slum area that it's of course it's always raining. Everything is like gross and wet. Everything is neon. There's like giant modified people everywhere, and everybody's got cybernetic parts. Later in the game, you sort of get to the nice upper areas of the city, and it's like beautiful and clean and white and red, and it looks really great. But I was this isn't the deepest RPG. It's a really good twin stick shooter. They do some cool stuff with cover, so you can sort of hit the B button to duck behind cover, and then you pull the left trigger to kind of like aim your gun up above the cover, and you pull the right trigger to shoot it. If you're just walking around, you pull the right trigger to shoot your gun. A lot of the RPG stuff is like, here's 6 categories of stuff. Like, here's your cybernetics and your reload speed and your roll recovery cooldown and stuff like that. Where I really liked this game is in the kind of biotic cybernetics equipment stuff. There's essentially 4 categories. 2 augments that are let's call them like active items. They're bound to the 2 shoulder buttons on an Xbox controller. I eventually settled into one which was this kind of like an area you could place down, and any enemies that got hit in that area, when you shot them, you'd steal life from them, so you could heal yourself pretty rapidly. And the other one was just like a missile barrage, which was shockingly effective. And then underneath that are 2 passive ones. I don't remember what I eventually settled on for my passives. But most of them were relating to, the game could be pretty tough. So a lot of them were related to like, I need to heal faster. I need to heal more when I do heal and stuff like that. I did just finish it like half an hour before we came up here to record this. It's a really good game that I feel like, if you're going to try it and it's not clicking with you, I'd say maybe stick with it for a couple of hours. I think I spent probably about 20 hours in it. I think based on the achievements, I finished like 60-something of this percent of the side quests. It has a real slow start. You don't get enough of the biotics early enough to kind of make a difference. You don't even get like your other active skill. Like you get an EMP grenade pretty early on. You don't get that for a little bit. But I feel like once that stuff starts to unlock it, I feel like it really starts to shine. And it's the first game from a really small studio, so there's kind of a large number of bugs and kind of rough edges and weirdness. Like nothing that has actively like harmed my enjoyment of it, but there's some stuff where it's like, okay, I've followed. There's a great thing when you hit the up button or the up on the D-pad, it just shows you a line where you're supposed to go and how many meters away it is. And there were like 2 or 3 side quests where I hadn't yet unlocked the area where the side quest wanted me to go to. So it would just kind of lead me to a corner off in this building and say like, yeah, you're there. There you go. Side quest time. It's like, probably not. So there's just, it's weird stuff like that. Weird difficulty spikes, but nothing that really affected my enjoyment of it too much. It's great. I mean, it's a perfect game for Game Pass where you look at it and be like, yeah, I mean, sure, it's like $30, and I'd love to give that a shot, but maybe maybe I have the time and not the money, and this is one of those great like Game Pass gems where it's like, yeah, all right, this really clicked with me. This is a really cool kind of combination of things, and this isn't me like throwing any shade to any game in particular, but like it's really nice to see a game get Cyberpunk right, like that aesthetic. I haven't played Cyberpunk 2077, so like I'm sure people will be like, ooh, CD Projekt Red. It's like,
Nope.
that's not. I don't know how they handled it, but I feel like most of the time people misread Cyberpunk where it's like, ooh, I have like a camera for an eye and there's a lot of Japanese characters in neon. Ooh, and it's like, that's not really, that's like 1% of it. Like you really need to, you start off the game as an indent, which is an indentured servant. And like you can only do the crap jobs around the planet because you weren't like born into an upper caste. I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, like we're starting there. And like one of the first few story missions is like, all right, the corporation who owned this planet went bankrupt. We don't know what we're going to do now because they owned everything. Oh no. Like, yeah, like that's Cyberpunk. This is like our capitalist nightmare future. Great. You got it. So that's the Ascent. I really liked it. It clicked with me pretty quickly, but I think if it's not clicking with you early, I would kind of stick with it for a little bit here.
I've heard so I was on Tiltcast a week or two ago, and they were kind of giving that game glowing reviews, except when they tried the co-op. And evidently the co-op, at that time at least, was ridiculously, like, unplayable broken.
Yeah, so Moon and I, or Moonpier on TVGP for anyone that doesn't listen over there, we had been looking forward to this game. I think they showed it off really heavily at E3 this year. And like as soon as they showed it off, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like an isometric twin stick RPG, like that. This is my jam, man. Like, and they're like, I'll play with like I can play up to 3 or 4 characters. But Moon and I were like, all right, it's coming to Game Pass. We're going to download it. We're going to play co-op and it's going to be great. And then I find out like the day it launched that co-op doesn't carry story progression for everybody. It just carries it over for the host. So if he joins my game and we play for like 6 hours, he'll fire up his game and he'll be at the beginning of the game. He'll be like, all right, let's do the tutorials. It's like, that's really frustrating. Like my expectation in 2021 is that doesn't happen anymore. And like I said, it's a small team. It's a small budget. It's their first game. So like, I'm sure they wanted to do that and they didn't have the means to do so, which is fine. But I as a regard, we didn't play co-op, and I have heard, I haven't experienced it myself, but I've heard there are quite a few growing pains in the co-op side, where there's just things are a little bit weird. I think they already put out a fairly large patch on all platforms. So like now it has difficulty options, which is really great. And I think they smoothed out some of the edges there. But yeah, I've also heard that co-op is in a bit of a rough spot.
Like it sounded like a really cool game to me. Like there are just crowds of people around, and the second someone opens fire, they all start running off. And,
it is really great. I played it completely solo. I took the developers' recommendations on PC or on console to heart, and I set it to easy, and I set the what's the setting? Auto aim to high. Because when you're using twin sticks, it's not going to be as accurate as if you're using a mouse for aiming. So that kind of gave you just like a little bit of assistance there. It was never like I'm shooting and the bullets are bending behind me and hitting somebody. It never got to that level, but it was kind of that like, if you were like 3 to 10 degrees off from an enemy, sometimes it would just whoop, just scoot on over to that guy. But yeah, I really recommend the Ascent, especially if you have Game Pass. It's I I've been seeing a lot of people saying like, yeah, maybe I'll wait for a patch or two. I don't think I would blame you. I think that it's probably one good patch away from being really, really great, just kind of smoothing over all those issues. And I, if that's the case, I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's really great. Um, I should probably download it on my PC because I have this 3070 in here. Apparently, it looks incredible on PC, and it already looked great on my Series X. So I'll have to download that and kind of see it there. But yeah, go try out the Ascent. It's really good. Next up, game that just came to Game Pass as well, Dodgeball Academia. Um, didn't realize this was an RPG until I started it and saw some other people. It's essentially, if you remember Golf Story that came out on Switch a couple years ago, it's essentially like that for Dodgeball. I've played a little bit of it. I've probably played about half an hour of it. I've fought a couple of battles. It's really great throwing a dodgeball at someone on the other side of the court and having it take HP off their health bar. It seems really cool. I want to mention it's also out in Game Pass, and it's I don't know how deep it is, but it seems like a cool game that it could potentially get overlooked. So Dodgeball Academia, go check that out. Seems cool. Has a cool art style. The very small team. I don't know how many people made that, but it looks really cool. Destiny 2. I guess the polar opposite of that. We're the new season starts on August 24th. Unfortunately, we're recording this before the sort of epilogue for this season rolls out, whatever that's going to be. That'll start on the 10th. Wanted to remind people that Destiny 2 is still in a really great spot. This season was really good. Featured a really great story about how compassionate should you be and can you be to migrants when they need your help, which is really great and interestingly timely. And we were talking about space racist before, and one character from well, I guess she was also in Destiny 1. The leader of the future war cult turns out to be a super space racist in like the worst way. And really interesting story. You know, there's a line that she said where it's like, I am more than happy to give essentially as part of the storyline, you welcome the fallen into the tower because a small portion of them need your help. And she says, like, I am more than happy to give them the help that they need as soon as their kind packs their bags and gets out of my tower. And I was just like, woof,
Wow.
lady. Okay, nobody is agreeing with you, dude. This is real bad. So it's really good. We're seeing a lot of stuff leading up to the Witch Queen, which is the next big expansion that's supposed to be coming out in March. And we're at the lead up to the next expansion here, where Bungie hasn't even said what the name of the next season is. They're going to have a trailer drop at Reset on August 24th. So when the next season starts, there's a brand new trailer that launches then about the lead up to the Witch Queen. They did that for the season that led to the last expansion, Beyond Light, and it was very good. So I'm pretty excited about that. And you know, if anyone wants to come back, season 15, which is the one starting on the 24th, is probably a great point to hop in. It will probably be a pretty long season, stretching from August until March. So if you're looking to catch up, that's probably a pretty great time to do so. And Destiny 2 is just in a great place. And
Hey,
go ahead.
question: does Bungie have their own launcher now, or do you still have to get that game on PC through Steam or something else?
It's Steam. Yeah.
Okay.
It will be on Game Pass for PC. They're saying later this year, but I'm not sure what that means. I'm sort of assuming the fall time frame. But yeah, you'll get that through through Steam. I would keep an eye on for the what do they call it? The Destiny 2 Legendary Collection, I think it's called. It's essentially all of the big DLC packs. It's usually like $70, but I've been seeing it on sale recently for like $34, which is a really good price for like 3 giant pieces of DLC.
Gotcha. Yeah, it just occurred to me that I have this new fancy computer, and
There you go, yeah.
I don't know if I've ever played the PC version of Destiny.
Well, the base version of Destiny 2 is free. So you can always just download that and it's like, at the very least, if you don't stick with it, it's like a cool tech demo where it's like, ooh, look at the tower. Ooh, Earth. Cool. But yeah,
it's all cross save, right? So I can play
Correct.
my PlayStation guy on it.
Correct. Yeah, you'll have to go to, I think it's bungie.net/cross save, and you can get that set up. It's very easy to do so. And crossplay is coming later this month, is estimated. So you'll be able to play with other people no matter what platform they're on.
Nice.
So it's looking at their implementation of it, it looks like it was a metric ton of work, which is really pretty incredible. So 2 thumbs up, and a lot of kudos to Bungie for doing that. The beta test they did recently was pretty smooth, so I'm hoping that there are few issues when it launches. There's always going to be issues, but hopefully they're all pretty minor. But yeah, Destiny 2 is great. 2 thumbs up. What do I have next here? Final Fantasy V 4-Job Fiesta. Let me pull up my notes here. I don't remember. I'm fairly sure I talked about my first run last month. I finished my second run, which was Ranger, Bard, Samurai, Ranger. That was pretty straightforward. Nothing too overpowered, but it was kind of healthy. Well, no, Bard is pretty overpowered, but that was a fairly solid run. Nothing super challenging, but I wasn't like blowing my way through it or anything. Finished run 3, which is probably the worst run I've had in a really long time. It was Berserker, Beastmaster, Summoner, Beastmaster. I really struggled to think of a worse run than you could give someone. You'd probably have to trade out Summoner for Dancer, and that would probably be way worse. But it was brutal. Like that was a struggle from minute 1 to get through that fight. Like I had to fight Liquid Flame as 4 Berserkers. Like I had virtually nothing through the entire. Summoner only becomes useful like all the way at the end of the game. It was really brutal. So Monkey Senior from the community mentioned, hey, instead of doing all these chaos runs, why don't you do a popular run, which I've never done before. And it's essentially, it's heavily weighted towards jobs that most people get. So it's usually a pretty straightforward kind of easier run. And I got White Mage, Black Mage, Blue Mage, and Bard. So I destroyed that run. Like that was probably the easiest run I've had in. I realized this year that I've been doing the Fiesta for 10 years. That's probably the easiest run I've ever had throughout the last 10 years. It's just, there's a way to abuse every single boss. There's oftentimes a way to one-shot every single boss. And if you can't one-shot it, you can supercharge yourself with a Bard and then one-shot it in a couple of turns. Like, that was brutally, I think it was a 10-hour run. Like, I flew through that game. So that was run number 4. I'm on run number 5 right now. The reason why I'm doing so many runs is I have my 3DS XL here, a custom firmware on it, and I'm running the Final Fantasy V Advance, which I think is the best version. And I'm using it as my like chilling out in bed, relaxing at the end of the day game, so I can put it like a couple hours in every couple of days. So here's where run 5 gets a little weird. The role that I was given was Ranger, Thief, Geomancer, Dragoon, which is a horrifically terrible class of jobs. And also I was forced to use 4 Rangers for 4 Thieves for a really long time. So it's the first time this year I used the job fair. And for anyone that hasn't done the Fiesta before, job fair is essentially your way of saying, I got a job or some number of jobs that I'm not going to deal with, or I've gotten it too many times, or I don't want to run a Geomancer on this version. I'm going to re-roll that job into something I specify, and then I need to make a donation to the charity that the Fiesta is supporting this year as part of me re-rolling. So I tried to roll into 4 jobs I haven't really done too much before. So I got Knight, Ninja, Ranger, and Samurai. I know I've had like some Samurai and Ranger earlier this year, but I tried to balance it into some stuff that I know wasn't super powerful and some stuff I haven't really tried before. So I'm at the end of World 2 on that run, and it's going pretty okay. That's been kind of a fun run to have Knight and Ninja on, since I don't really use those often. I just never get them for whatever reason. But if anyone wants to play the 4-Jet Fiesta, it's going until the end of this month, till the end of August. So you still have time to get on in and do a run if you want. You don't have to be crazy like I am and do a chaos run. That's for people that want to punish themselves, like myself. You can just do a regular run, which gives you 1 job from each crystal. Those are usually pretty fair runs. But I'm kind of at the point where I like doing chaos runs, because I have to say, like, all right, if I can't use this class here, and if I don't have this until then, how am I going to abuse kind of the weaknesses and the benefits of Final Fantasy V in my favor? It's great. Final Fantasy V is so good. I love it. Final game, Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster. I picked this up on Steam. I think it's had like a launch day sale. I think it's normally like $8. I think it was like $6 and change or something. It was like 10-20% off or something like that. This game is, so number 1, it's been a really long time since I played Final Fantasy I. So there has been a lot of remembering and relearning Final Fantasy I. I don't think I've played it for like 15 years, maybe. So I now understand why Square was being so forceful about saying, we are remastering the original versions. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, no big deal, whatever. They're taking out the bonus dungeons from Final Fantasy I. Okay, whatever. No, like, they took out MP from Final Fantasy I, and it's back to magic charges. So
wow.
like, it's the NES version of this. Like, they were not lying. There are some quality of life things. Like, Final Fantasy I is sort of infamous for all 4 of your party members attack this wolf, and then the first one kills it, and the other 3 just swing at dead air. Your party members move on to the next enemy now. Your party starts the game with a set of weak equipment equipped. So it's not like the beginning of Final Fantasy 1, the original version, where like you just have fists and you need to get into the first town as quick as you can to buy stuff. And like don't wander around and get into a fight, because that's not going to work. But it's still, if a party member dies, using a tent or an inn won't bring them back to life. You have to go to the church, pay money to resurrect them, and then they come back to life with 1 hit point. So then you need to go use the inn. The thing I said about this on TVGP is it's this balance of good and bads. Like, I think the pixel art looks incredible. I think they managed to capture what that game looked like on a CRT when I was playing it in the 80s, as opposed to like if you fire up the NES version on an emulator, like how clean that looks. Like they kind of, it looks really solid. They also have like a CRT filter. I don't think it looks really good because it puts the scan lines, which I don't mind, but it does like a slight screen curve, which I don't like. So that stuff looks really good, but every once in a while there's like 3D elements. Like when you go in the first town, there's that water fountain there with like the dancer lady. And like the water fountain looks like it's like polygonal effects, which is way out of place for the rest of this game. Obviously not like the biggest thing in the world, but it's just sort of like you did all this incredible work and you have like these little elements here and there that just look really weird. Speaking of the dancer lady, the one nice change they made is Final Fantasy 1 can be a little bit obtuse, and it can definitely be very unforgiving. That dancer lady in the first town, if you talk to her, she will sort of point you in the general direction where you need to go next. So it's a lot of like, you just got a ship. I wonder what would happen if you'd sail all the way to the west. I wonder what you'd find. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just make my way there and try and figure out. They have auto battle in this, which is really great. It's on the mobile version, you tap the auto battle button. On the PC version, you just hit whatever key it is, and all your party members repeat the same thing they did last time. Which is great because in Final Fantasy 1, you're going to be doing grinding because it's a little bit tough.
Especially original NES style.
Yeah, like it's kind of funny because like I remembered the Garland fight at the very beginning being pretty tough. And I was like, all right, I'm going to grind out a little bit. And like my first battle, I was like, oh, right. Okay, cool. Yes, this game is still very hard. Okay. But they did raise the level cap. The highest level is 100 now. And they actually have a really great level up display now. Because before, in the original version, it was like, oh, your party leveled up. You got one of this. And then like it would really quickly be like, boom, boom, boom. Here's all your character stats that went up. Now it's this really big window that's like, all right, you went from level 5 to 6. Your HP went from 55 to 60. Your strength and your luck and your, all those stats. Here's what they went from, and here's what they are now. It's a much, much better system. I feel like an old man when I talk about this, but there's eight-way directional movement in this, which is still really weird in like a pixel art RPG. Unlike some of the previous versions, you can't turn that off, which, again, not the biggest thing in the world. It's just one of those things where it's like, all right, okay, this doesn't really fit, but that's fine. I'm just an old man. I'll yell at this cloud. Probably the elephant in the room is the font. Yeah, it's bad. Like it's a bad font.
Modded. I've seen the mods going around.
Yeah, I did the Scott White over at RPG Site found out that if you take the font files for the Japanese font and you just copy and rename them to the English font files, it largely fixes the issue. So like better fonts are already there in the Steam files. That's unfortunately not going to work for the mobile versions. But I did that, and that worked pretty well until I saw on Twitter that someone put up a Final Fantasy Mystic Quest font, and I immediately installed that, and that looks really good. So that's the one. That's the one I've been running. I'm seeing some people putting Final Fantasy VI font, the original like PSP 1 and 2 font, the Dragon Quest font. I'm having a lot of fun watching people. They're like, oh, how does this font look? Oh, this looks really good. All right, I got to release this on archive.org. So there's a ton of fonts there. It's super easy to replace the font. Essentially, you just back up the current font files. There's 2 of them, and then just drag some new files in there, and it immediately replaces every single piece of text in the game with a new font. So looks really great. They have per region bestiary and chest tracking, like treasure chest tracking. So you can see how many of the enemies in the area you've beaten and how many of the treasure chests you've opened as you're in that area. And they do this cool, like, interactive bestiary thing. We can actually fly over the world map and see where enemies spawn on the world map. There'll be like a little icon of an enemy where it's like, here's where imps spawn. Here's where yellow dragons spawn.
All the Final Fantasy games need that.
Yeah, as someone who enjoys Final Fantasy V, that would be a really nice thing if they carry that to Final Fantasy V, so you could have all your good blue magic stuff going on. There's also a really good mini-map in towns and the world. The one in towns is especially good because it gives you this kind of like obfuscated map, but it shows the icons of each shop on the mini-map. So it's like, I just need to go find the black magic shop. I don't know where it is. The mini-map is really clear, like, oh, it's over, just take this, go over there, and it's kind of tucked in the back part of this map. I've spent 2.5 hours with this so far, and I'm like heading towards the not the lich fight, the goblin prince, like that kind of first real big dungeon, like the marsh cave, I think is what it's called. So like with how quickly Final Fantasy 1 goes, like you beat Garland, you go across the bridge, you fight the pirates, you get a ship like right away. So I've done all that stuff, and I gotta say I'm having a blast with it. Like it looks great. The new music is incredible. Like the worry that I had based on the trailers and stuff was that it was going to be an orchestral score, which is not bad in and of itself, but I felt like that might not mesh well with the style they were going for. But they managed to keep all the arrangements the same, but they essentially kind of used like a new sound font, essentially. So it's like a much higher quality. Chiptune isn't like the right word to say, because I feel like that has kind of baggage along with it, but they have redone and rearranged these songs in kind of a modern way, and it meshes really, really well. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. 1, 2, and 3 are out right now. I'm very excited to play the original version of 3 again. I never finished that. I don't know if I'll play 2, even though people say this version is really good. But 4, 5, and 6 are supposed to come out later this year, and like those are the ones. I'm not the biggest fan of 4. I a lot of people are, but like a new version of 5 that has the potential of every version of 5 has different bugs in it that are kind of beneficial to a Fiesta player. So I'm very excited to see what this new version of 5 looks like, and like hear the new soundtrack and everything.
All I want is for them in 6 to take that stupid field where you have to grind. Is it Garu, who's your kind of blue mage type character?
I forgot about
Give
that.
me like the map
Velt.
symbols where the
Yeah.
monsters are, and let's run with like, give me the improvements you just talked about in 6.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm excited to experience, especially with 4, 5, and 6. Because like 1, 2, and 3 are 1 and 3 are like fairly straightforward experiences. Like 1 is a Dungeons and Dragons game that a Japanese developer made. Like that's a D&D game through and through. 2 is like it's a Kawazu game who made the Saga series. That's like his first try at making a Saga game, and I don't think it was largely successful. Apparently, this version kind of smooths out some of the BS that's inherent in Final Fantasy II. I guess is a much smoother experience. And 3 is like the Final Fantasy where they started the job system. So like, I feel like those are kind of games where you can make little changes here and there, like they made to 1, where it's kind of quality of life. But I feel like 4, 5, and 6, especially 5 and 6, like those feel like you can make larger quality of life improvements that don't fundamentally change the game, but kind of make things a little bit easier if you want to go through and you want to do some more completion stuff. Also, each one of these games has achievements in them on Steam, and then each one of them also conveniently has a complete all the achievements achievement in it, almost like a platinum trophy on the PlayStation. Weird, odd, strange. So I know a lot of people, myself included, are like gnashing our teeth about like, please put the 6 of these on the Switch so you can play 1 through 12 on one platform in like their best versions. And
Talk dirty to me.
yeah, like, and I think for me, I think it's also important because like so many people are like, I was born in the late 90s, or I never loved RPGs, but I'm kind of liking them now that I'm older, or like I never had these consoles growing up. You know, there's a bunch of reasons why people didn't play the Final Fantasy games as they were coming out, or they're like, I played Final Fantasy VII Remake, really liked that. That was my first one. What do I do? And I would love to say like, hey, if you have a Switch, these are the best versions of them, 1 through 12. Just like download all of those, go nuts. So Square put out a statement the other day where it's like, oh yeah, like wink, if you really want them on other platforms, you know, keep asking us, wink, wink. So it's probably one of those things where all 6 of them will come out and they'll be like, oh, weird. Oh, that's next month. They're all coming out on Switch. Oh, who could have seen this coming? Fingers crossed if they have their wits about them. But the Final Fantasy Tactics trilogy still isn't out on the Switch, which is baffling to me. So it's a 50-50 chance, I guess.
I was about to say, now do Tactics.
Yeah, like, man, that Tactics trilogy would just, or at least just put the first one out. Like, that game is so good.
That game is so good. I need the first advanced game. Like, I need that game back in my life. I need that snowball fight. I need that depressing story.
Yep.
Like, bring it back.
Did you ever play the second one?
I did. I don't remember a thing about the story, though. Yeah,
I remember the story in that wasn't super great, but I feel like they kind of got the gameplay down in that one a little bit.
Yeah.
I loved the gameplay in the first one, especially the restrictions they put on you, like the judge system and everything. I always dug that, and I totally understood why people didn't click with it. But I feel like they came to a good compromise in the second one with that.
I remember really enjoying playing the second, like both advanced games. I never beat, like, because I just got lost in the grind of it,
right?
Because I was like, I'm gonna get every character, every class, and max them all out.
Yep.
Which is
right there with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I just did not follow that through to the end. I got fairly far in both of them, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's I have a real big place in my heart for both of those games. I mean, like the first Tactics game is one of the best, probably one of the best JRPGs of all time, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely one of the best like strategy RPGs of all time.
Yeah, like there's no dethroning that, but like the advanced games are underserved right now, and they need to start appearing on things.
Yeah,
they deserve it.
And that's part of the reason why now that I've played the Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster, like I'm very excited for these because font aside, they didn't screw them up. Like they put a new coat of paint on them, they put some quality of life stuff in there, and they kind of left it alone. Like you could have put the MP system back in a Final Fantasy 1, and you probably could have made it a little bit easier. I don't think anybody would be really that upset by it, like the Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Advance. But I like that they kind of said, like, no, here's the original version. Looks better, sounds better. It's a little bit easier to play, but like this is kind of the original one. And I'm kind of excited because I don't think I've played Final Fantasy 4 in like 20 years and Final Fantasy 6 in like 15 years or so. Like it's been a really long time, and I feel like you give me new versions of those, especially with the new soundtracks, because all of those games, everything Uematsu has touched is kind of iconic and timeless at this point. So,
man, that just occurred to me. That means like if this is the original version of 4, like
yeah,
dude, it bothered me. It really bothers me in the new versions when they're like, guess what? Everyone survived like that.
Right. Yeah.
Like, took some teeth out of the game for me. So, nice.
Yeah. 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 So I'm really enjoying them. I so far I'm recommending Final Fantasy 1, but I don't know how much time I'll put into it now, because I just have a whole bunch of other stuff I'm playing. But once Final Fantasy 5 comes out, that'll be like a day one purchase on Steam for me. That's kind of I will really dig into that one. All right, let's wrap up the rest of this real quick here because we're sort of running a little bit long. Let's talk about RPG releases for August 2021. Kind of a quieter month this month. Starting off with King's Bounty 2 for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. That comes out on the 24th. It's kind of a no man's land up until the end of this month. Like there's really nothing coming out unless I miss something super obvious.
Is King's Bounty, is that the old... I must be thinking of something else. I thought there was like a PlayStation 1 franchise.
No, I think you're thinking of like King's Bounty 1 on the PC from like, I want to say like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, like a long time ago.
Is this a sequel to that or something?
Yeah, it's what's the studio? Crowcat, I think, is coming out with this, where it's like not 100% a sequel, but kind of a sequel, like a spiritual successor, sort of. It looks pretty neat. I've all I could find online was a lot of people complaining that it's not like the first one, so like that's not super helpful about what the changes are. But it seems kind of neat. It seems interesting. Next game here, Baldo. That's Baldo for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, coming out on the 27th. If you haven't seen a trailer for Baldo, you should probably go watch it. It very much looks like kind of like a Zelda-inspired action RPG, kind of hack and slash RPG thing. That I feel like when we talked about Ni no Kuni, it was like, yeah, it's like Studio Ghibli inspired, right? And this game looks like, yeah, it's just like Ghibli. Like, it's not even inspired. It's just like, yeah, this looks like a straight out of a Ghibli movie. So, that seems like it that kind of came out of nowhere this month, but it seems like it's shaping up pretty nicely. And lastly, Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous comes out on the PC on the 2nd. I feel like the Pathfinder series is always one that I feel like I would really click with, and I just have never given the time of day. And this one's probably launching at a bad time, but I don't know.
It's going to be like Pillars of Eternity and Baldur's Gate and all that.
Yeah. It's like you guys put them out at the wrong time.
I know they kickstarted one of these, but I think the kickstarted one already came out. I think this is...
Yeah, I think that was the previous one. Yeah. All right, let's talk about our news stories for this month. First up, Warframe to get cross-play, cross-save, and a mobile version. All 3 of those are in development right now. No estimated time frame for its release.
That is awesome. I have
Yeah.
been wanting, like, I don't know, like, I keep debating. I have it installed on my new computer.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot bring myself to start the game yet. Like,
you're like looking over the cliff's edge, be like, do I want to go there?
Like, I'm a little afraid of it because it's a little obtuse, to say the least, to figure out what the heck you're doing and what you need to grind, and it does get into some of those currencies that the phone games get into. But it is needed at minimum cross save for years, because I probably would have played it a lot more because I had friends playing on PS4, I had friends playing on Xbox.
Yeah, you play it on your Switch
with several thousand hours.
Right.
Maybe not several thousand, but at least like 1,000 hours is on PC. So what do I do?
Right.
I don't play. But anyway.
Yeah, and they also, at TennoCon, they showed off the huge new expansion launching later this year. They showed a trailer that was 30 minutes long. So they got plenty of stuff to show off on that. I don't remember what it's called. But they keep killing it with that game. Like, good for them. It keeps getting better and better. So 2 thumbs up. And last news story here. The Persona 25th anniversary site was launched almost a month ago. They have their first announcement. A lot of it is like, yeah, here's some merchandise and here's some cool pictures. Ooh, like has all the Persona protagonists. First announcement planned for sometime in September. And then they're going to have announcements scheduled at regular intervals until autumn 2022. So looks like they'll be announcing stuff kind of all the way through the year. Sort of wanted to ask, what are our dream announcements from like a 25th anniversary Persona celebration?
Guess what? We took Persona 3, Persona 3 Fest, and Persona 3 Mobile and made like one modern video game out of it.
Right. We smushed all the good parts together. Yeah.
All the quality of life from Persona 4 and 5 added to 3.
Right.
But honestly, I don't know how you do that for 3 with freaking, is it It's not Mementos. It's Tartarus.
Tartarus, yeah.
Like the giant 300 plus level randomized dungeon.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any modernizing that, but
no, yeah. I feel like my dream for this is very similar to the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, where it's like I just want like Persona 1, 2, and 3, especially optimally 4, to be collected in like one larger collection and put that on as many platforms as you possibly can. Like, I want to see that on PlayStation and Xbox and Switch and PC. Like, 5 is in enough places now. Like, I'd love to see that come to Game Pass for sure. But like, that's recent enough that I'm sure that wouldn't be part of that collection. But like, I'd love to have people that are playing Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal that are like, I want to play 3. How do I do that? And it's like, well, do you have a PS2? Like that's sort of a PS2 and a couple $100. Like, I want these things to be more accessible. And that would be my real, like, I don't know if we need like a full-on remake for like 1 and 2. I don't know if you need to go that far. You could probably do a lot of work on 3, like you said, to kind of like mush all this stuff together from all these different versions. Like, here's 3 with kind of the good improvements of Fess, and now the female main characters in here, along with all the other stuff they sort of introduced for portable, but it's still in 3D. You can still explore. That'd probably be my dream version. 1
and 2, they have perfectly good versions on PSP. They just need to port. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just put those on everything. Like, I want to go back and play those. Like, 2, the gameplay was a little hard for me to get past, but the world and some of the systems in it were like super interesting to me.
Yep.
And I always meant to give that more of a try.
And it would be nice for them to release both parts of 2 at the same time on the same platform for once here in the US. Like that's always been like, all right, we're putting out Persona 2, the second part. See you later. It's just like, no, I don't have that first part.
Yeah, like situation right now is you play the first part on PSP and then the second
Right.
part on PS1.
Right. It's just like, oh, guys.
Good luck affording how
right.
much the second part costs.
Yeah. I think the only thing that feels obvious, but I'm probably not going to be hedging my bets on is a Persona 6.
Yeah.
I feel like if they announce that, that might be the very last thing they announce, like this time next year. I don't think we get that announcement really early on. Like, I think you build up to that, if anything, but like Persona 5 Royal just came out like within a couple of years, and Strikers just came out. So like, they're still kind of riding the wave of 5, and I feel like they're focusing on SMT 5, which still looks incredible. So I feel like they don't muddy that with Persona 6.
Yeah.
I think that's not in their best interest. So
yeah,
maybe
I
next
agree
year.
with that. Like I will still get excited if they announce Persona 6, but it's not the announcement I want yet.
Right.
I'm still thinking, like, I haven't even, you said Strikers, and that, like, I felt a little bit of panic in me of, like, crap, I still haven't even, I gotta go back and finish up Royal, I gotta do Strikers.
Right.
And hopefully, by then I can start playing SMT 5 and.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, boy. I'm excited about SMT 5. That's coming out November, I think.
Yeah. Dude, they've been posting the different demon models, and like they've updated like a huge amount of the designs. Like,
yeah, they just showed off Shisa, and that looks really good. Like they've been featuring a lot of like beginner demons and like the beginning of the game demons. And a lot of those look really good. Like they put in a lot of work on this.
Angel's not some weird bondage lady with wings anymore.
Yeah, she has like a cool gold like face mask thing. Like Angel looks really cool. And Angel's one where I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's Angel. Who cares? I'm gonna fuse her into something else, whatever. But yeah, it looks really cool. All right, that's our news stories for this week, or this month, which means that's the end of our episode. You can visit us at pickingupthepixels.com. Everywhere to find and follow us is on the right-hand side of the page. Musim, where can we find you online?
You can find me at jbasandboyaudio.net, and that'll have links to all my music projects. And then you can find me on Twitter as John Musim, M-U-S-I-M.
There you go. And go make sure to visit his Bandcamp page and go buy some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's all good. There's Bandcamp Fridays every once in a while. That's usually a nice little boost. So keep an eye out for that. It is,
and there's links to my Bandcamp on jbaudio.net as well. So.
Perfect. There you go. You can find all my shows at e1m1.com, and don't forget patreon.com/e1m1 for all the support. Thank you for everyone who does support us, whether it's financial or not, or even if you just listen to the show. Super appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who listens and watches and all that. Appreciate it. That's our adventure for this month. We'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.